How My House Burned Down, Part 4. So, once I exited the building, out the back door, into the garden, I cut through the yard to where the church was, and the church had an enclosed, walled-in courtyard, and that's where the huge fire truck was, and there were dozens of firefighters, and they had brought this thing that they set up in the street just outside the courtyard, which was like a makeshift 2 or 3 foot deep pool where they were bringing in water trucks filled with water from all the surrounding counties, and they were pumping water into this makeshift pool and then leaving to go get more water, because at that point they really didn't know how bad the fire was going to be. And because the building was so old, I mean, it was almost like 2.5 foot thick walls. It's like a 200+ year old building. It created a rocket stove where, I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier videos, that the walls created a tube effect where the flames were shooting up hundreds of feet in the air. And I mean, it was like, I'd never seen anything like it. It was like seeing a dragon come alive and feed and grow and get bigger and bigger. And at that point, I think you could see us. We're on top of a mountain at like around, I don't know, 8,000 feet above I-40, the interstate that, was down in Albuquerque. And at this point, the helicopters started coming from the news, and you could see the fire like a torch on the hill from the interstate. And the news was now reporting it nationally because the daughter who had gone away to art school, college, saw it on the news, not knowing that it was her home that was burning. It was a very strange night. The whole village came out. Everybody was just standing there in awe, like it was the most horrendously beautiful thing I've ever seen. And you could hear all these strange noises inside the house of things burning and wailing. Like the piano was left, there was nothing left of the piano, and the hot water heater was melted to a puddle of nothing. But certain things did survive. We'll talk about that later. Certain fragile things like rugs and feathers, but metal things melted, and books lived, but appliances were gone. I had this weird sense of elation. Now, keep in mind that I had just completely committed to moving in maybe a few weeks earlier. I had been staying at the house for over a year and dating the man who owned the house and helping with his kids. He had, like I said, 2 twin boys and a daughter, and they were all teenagers, and it was a new experience for me. I'd never really dated anyone with kids before. I felt more like an auntie or a sibling than I felt like a parental unit, which is probably why it works so well, because it was like dad and all the kids. He was like the dad and we're all like the kids, and all we did was like camp and make art and blow glass and make food and try to get our lives set up so that we could support ourselves with art. And I mean, the concept was amazing. I didn't realize at the time that it was a fool's errand. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about that today, but watching the house go up after committing to moving in, like he gave me a dresser and my things were in the closet and it was for reals. We were like moving forward in a real way, and we had nothing but our future ahead of us. committing to it and then watching that decision be the worst decision that I had ever made thus far. And not thinking to save anything, because the shock of watching your house burn to the ground over 8 hours. I mean, the first hour alone was like fireworks. We thought the propane tank was going to explode. The car was close enough to the house to melt somewhat. The only things that survived were things that I hadn't moved in yet, that were outside in a bus in the driveway. There was a bus that someone had abandoned, 33-foot bus that ended up being my saving grace. I ended up moving it onto some land and moving into it eventually. But all of my journals, it's weird what survived. I've been keeping journals since I was 17. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of journals. Those survived. And my pictures of things were out there. At one point, we were asked as a community to go and walk around the village and stomp out all of because basically, imagine having a huge fire and all the little sparks are flying through the air. And it was October 15th, and it's in New Mexico at a high altitude, so everything's super dry. It's all like grasslands everywhere. And so while watching the house burn, I was always walking around the fields behind and stamping out miniature fires. And at that point, they were more focused on saving the church. I mean, immediately, once they got there, they really were like, this house is going down. Like, your house is going to burn down to the ground. There's going to be nothing left except for what you're wearing right now. Thank God I had shoes on. It's funny, I still have the outfit I was wearing. I wore it the other day. And the boots, they're threadbare. It's time to retire them, but it's like giving up on a piece of my life that I never consented to give up on. But there comes a point where you have to let go. When your house burns to the ground, you learn real quick that you have to let go, or it could ruin the rest of your life. I'm still learning it. It's been like 10 years. I'm still learning it. It almost got me. It almost ruined my life. And that's part number 4. And there's more. So we'll talk about more later, because that's all I can handle right now. Mwah.